Hola amigos, bienvenidos a la Hora del Cuento con mi amiga Marisela y yo, Pepis. Hola amigos, bienvenidos.
Hello, friends.
Bienvenidos a la Hora del Cuento.
Hola, amigos.
Hola amigos,
¿Cómo estás?
¿cómo estás?
Yo muy bien, gracias.
Yo muy bien, gracias.
¿Y tú qué tal?
¿Y tú qué tal?
Today, I brought different books about el Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. And it sounds kind of weird in English, but in Spanish, well, it's a very fun holiday. And this little book, well, it tells you how it all got started and a little bit about what it is. Maybe I should read that before I get to the other books. El Día de los Muertos.
Written by, escrito por Anne Heinrichs, e ilustrado por and illustrated by Myrnie Gallagher Cole. Skeletons dance in the windows. Children eat candy shaped like skulls. Tables are heaped with flowers and food. It's Día de los Muertos. Día de los Muertos is Spanish for Day of the Dead. Oh, but it's not a sad holiday. It's full of joy. It's a time to celebrate loved ones who have died. Sí, es cierto. El Día de los Muertos no es un día triste, es un día festivo donde celebramos la vida de todos los que ya murieron y queremos mucho. How it all began. Aztec people once lived in Mexico. They held a festival to celebrate the dead. It lasted a whole month. The Aztecs believed the spirits of their dead returned at this time. People rejoiced that their loved ones were visiting. They celebrated and danced. Skulls were part of the festival too. They were symbols of death and rebirth. Spanish people arrived in the 1500s. They were shocked at this festival. Spaniards saw death as the end of life. It was a time to be grim. But the Aztecs had a different view. To them, death was part of the cycle of life. They watched this cycle every year. Their crops sprouted, grew, ripened, and died. Then the cycle began again. Uy, sí es cierto. Los aztecas veían a la muerte como parte del ciclo de la vida. Nacer, crecer, madurar y morir. The festival that lived on. The Spaniards were Christians. They taught the religion to the Aztecs, but they could not change the Aztec celebration of the dead. Instead, they joined it with the Christian beliefs. November 2nd is All Souls' Day. This Christian feast honors the dead. Among the people of Mexico, it became Día de los Muertos. The Aztecs' old beliefs did not die. People still believed the spirits visited on Día de los Muertos. And the living still rejoiced. ¡Qué bueno! Que los aztecas y los españoles se pudieron poner de acuerdo para seguir celebrando el Día de los Muertos.
Okay, so now you know how it all began. Now, some places in Mexico, they celebrate it 3 days. And depending on where you are in Mexico, it may be celebrated a little different. Some people like to go out to where their loved ones were buried, and they'll decorate the gravestone, and they'll put flowers all over it, marigolds all over it, or they'll build an altar, that's an altar or ofrenda, and they'll decorate it and they'll put the picture of the deceased one.
Como la foto de mi abue.
Yeah, like your grandmother's picture that you put on it.
¿Te parece el que nosotros hicimos?
Really? It looks like yours? It's very pretty. And how about if I start showing you about Pablo? This is a really cool book because it's a true story.
Uy.
And, well, let's just go through it.
El libro se llama Pablo Remembers, the Fiesta of the Day of the Dead, and it's written by and está escrito por Jorge Ancona. This is the story of a Mexican boy named Pablo and his family. Here he is photographed with his 3 cute sisters. The story is about how his family make elaborate preparations to honor the spirits of the loved ones that have died. October 31st, All Hallows Eve. 31 de octubre, víspera del Día de Todos los Santos. The village church bells are ringing and the rooster is crowing. Pablo knows it's time to get up. The first thing he sees when he opens his eyes is a picture of Abuelita, his grandmother. The smiling photograph on the wall, made when she was a young mother, is the only one that was ever taken of her. Pablito remembers her with white hair and wrinkled hands, but the very same smile. Abuelita died 2 years ago, and he misses her.
Ay, igual que yo también extraño mucho a mi abue.
Today, the 3-day fiesta of El Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, begins, a time when Abuelita seems especially close. Everyone has so much to do to get ready. Pablo can hear his mother, Señora Refugio, already bustling about in the kitchen. "Niños, hurry and get dressed," she calls, "or we'll miss the bus." Usually when Pablo is not in school, he is working alongside his father, Señor Samuel, weaving the beautiful rugs that have made their village famous. But today there is no school, and there is no time for weaving either. Today, Pablo and his sister Shaula are going to help their parents shop in the big city market of Oaxaca. Their 2 younger sisters, Cristina and Angelita, will stay behind with their godmother. People everywhere in Mexico are busy preparing for the fiesta, the holiday. Bakers are baking the traditional pan de muertos, the bread of the dead. Candy makers are making sugar skulls. Children are cutting out cardboard skeletons. Artisans are stamping out tissue paper decorations called estampas. Farmers are harvesting cempasúchil, marigolds, the flowers of the dead. The Oaxaca market is already crowded when Pablo and Shaula and their parents arrive. As they make their way through the throng, the children watch their parents examine the fruits, taste the nuts, and bargain with the vendors for the best prices. They buy naranjas, oranges, manzanas, apples, chiles, peppers, nueces y cacahuates, pecans and peanuts, chapulines, fried grasshoppers. Yes, you heard right, fried grasshoppers. Cacao, cocoa beans, calabaza, pumpkin, copal, a resin incense, and it smells great. Cal, lime, pan de muertos, bread of the dead. A mí me gusta mucho el pan de muerto.
Yeah, I like pan de muerto too. It's very tasty. It's flavored with orange and with a little bit of anise, and it's very good.
Yeah. Hoy, todo lo que están comprando. Yeah, they are buying a lot of things. Velas, candles, tomates y jitomates, tomatoes, caña, sugarcane, limones, lemons, rábanos, radishes, especias, spices, cempasúchil, marigolds, calaveras de azúcar, sugar skulls. At last, they have everything they need, loaded down with packages to catch the bus for their village.
Uy, cuántas cosas compraron. Qué bueno que llevan de regreso. ¿Dónde estar cansados?
Back home, Pablo, Shaula, Cristina, and Angelita make a children's altar. The altar will invite the angelitos, spirits of the dead children, to come back for a visit tonight. Everything on it is small. Pablo lights the velita, the small candle, to light the way for the angelitos. It will burn all night long. By the time they have finished making their altar, it is time to go to bed. As Pablito falls asleep, he hears his mother still busy in the kitchen. She will be up till late into the night, cooking the chicken, soaking and cooking corn kernels in lime, and making all the other preparations for the day ahead. November 1st, All Saints' Day.
1 de noviembre, Día de Todos los Santos.
The next morning, Señora Refugio prepares an early breakfast for the family. The children dip their pan de muertos into the steaming cups of chocolate. Atole is a great treat for everyone, a warm drink made from ground corn that has been cooked in water. Then comes chicken broth served with large tortillas called tlayudas, a hearty beginning to a special day. Everyone has plenty of chores to do after breakfast. They must clean the house and have all the food ready by 3 o'clock, when the family will begin to arrive. Señora Refugio begins to prepare the traditional meal for the festival, tamales de mole. She kneels beside her metate to grind the chocolate, chiles, and especias for her mole sauce. Stone metates have been used for centuries to grind food. Working together, the girls and their mother make the tamales, and the wonderful smell of the tamales de mole fills the air. Señora Refugio spreads a cloth on a table and centers a crucifix on it. Then the children and their parents pile the table high with pan de muerto, frutas, flores, and cups of chocolate and atole, and special things that their dead relatives enjoyed during their lifetime. When the tamales are cooked, some will be placed on the ofrenda as well. Finally, they place photographs of their dead relatives on the altar. Now Abuelita can come to visit, says 𝐁𝐨𝐵𝐿. Just as the altar is ready, the sounds of fireworks fill the air. That is a signal that the spirits of the dead are on their way home. For the next 24 hours, the church bells will toll continuously. Teams of young men will take turns ringing them. "And now we can eat," shouts Pablo. The smell of cooking tamales has been teasing his appetite all this time. Señora Refugio uncovers the steaming pot and fills a basket with tamales for the children. Their parents will eat later with the guests.
Qué rico, se me antojaron mucho los tamales. Se ven bien deliciosos, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
After they have eaten, Pablito and his sisters put on their new clothes. The first guests will arrive any minute. The visiting will go on late into the night and again the next day. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, godmothers, and godfathers will all come. Each family will bring a canasta filled with pumpkin, candy, flowers, and candles to put on the altar. They will stay a while to visit. Then they will fill their empty baskets with some of the food from the altar and go on to the next relative's house. In between receiving guests, Pablo's family also goes visiting, and Pablo runs off to play with some of his friends. It is a day filled with feasting and talk and play and laughter for everyone, and the fiesta goes on even after Pablo can no longer keep his eyes open.
¡Uy! Sí es cierto, traen todos canastas.
That's right, they all have their baskets. Do you see them, boys and girls? November 2nd, All Souls Day.
2 de noviembre, Día de Todos los Santos.
The next morning, some of the villagers attend the church, which is decorated with tall candles, flowers, and offerings of food. This is the day when families go to the cemetery to decorate the graves and tombs of their relatives. The flowers for the graves must be fresh, so Señora Refugio makes one last trip to the market. At 3 o'clock, the bells stop ringing. A burst of fireworks erupts, signaling the departure of the spirits. Now Pablo and his family gather up flowers and picnic and join all the other village families in the cemetery. Señor Samuel sweeps the area around the family tombs. Pablo helps his mother decorate the graves with flowers and fruits. The family sits together, eating, singing, laughing, and keeping their dead relatives company. Neighbors come and go, sharing in the celebration. The children play games around the tombs. As dusk falls, Pablito lights the candles on Abuelita's tomb. Gradually, the sky turns black and the stars twinkle, and a quiet descends on the cemetery. In the flickering candlelight, people sit and think, remembering the loved ones who are buried there. Pablo turns to 𝐁𝐨𝐵𝐿. "I think Abuelita is happy that we are all here with her tonight," he says. 𝐁𝐨𝐵𝐿 smiles and nods. As the grown-ups chat, Cristina and Angelita snuggle into their parents' arms. Their eyes begin to droop. Soon they will all go home to a hot cup of chocolate and a warm bed. They have spent the last 3 days celebrating their ancestors. For Pablo, being with Abuelita has been the most special of all. Pablito knows he will always remember her, and as the years pass, he will celebrate her memory again and again on el Día de los Muertos.
¡Ay, qué libro tan lindo!
Yeah, that was a very, very nice book. I hope you enjoyed it too, boys and girls, and I hope that you understand what el Día de los Muertos is now, and maybe you can celebrate it too. I think it's time to say goodbye. Adiós, amigos.
¡Adiós, amigas!
Yo ya me voy.
¡Ya termino!
Adiós y hasta luego.
¡Adiós y hasta luego!
Yo ya me voy. Ya termino. Goodbye, friends.
¡Adiós, amigos!
Goodbye.